Hello, you're very welcome to the Under Center podcast, and this is AFI Weekly. Dara here with you, joined tonight just by Alex Sims, and as Jason Duddy of a certain Cowboys parish would say, the better-looking Sims brother is on with me today. How are you, buddy?
He's only saying that because they won the game I refed at the weekend. If it had gone the other way, don't know if he'd have been as generous.
I did see you were out in the black and whites on Sunday there up in the People's Park.
Yep.
We'll get into the game itself, but from a reffing point of view, how'd you get on?
Good, yeah. You know yourself. You can always do better. Sure, both sides will complain about calls being made or not made, but I think we did a decent enough job out there.
I think so. It wasn't the high scoring sort of a game that you would expect. And to be fair, in both Premier Division games this weekend, it wasn't very high scoring. Neither team getting over 15 points, respectively, in the game. Actually, to be fair, the Knights and Admirals game only hit 15 points combined in that game as well. It was in Division 1 where you had the high scoring games and the close games, which kind of was a flip, you could say, on the narrative for the last maybe year or two.
Absolutely, yeah. Weird scores like that 11-4, like that is definitely a Division 1 score you would expect, or even a Division 2 score from back in the day. But yeah, the defenses ruled the day in the SBC. But I think that is a factor. We see it in the NFL year after year. At the start of the season, the defenses perform better because the offenses just haven't, clicked or whatever. And they just take a little bit of time to gel everything together, fix the things that aren't quite working, the things that work great on paper and work great when you're repping them against your guys, or they're not tackling you to the ground and everything else. But when it gets to real game time, some of those things don't work. You need to get in the lab and readjust. So I'm not surprised in one way to say the defenses are on top early, but it is definitely interesting, shall we say.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point because we come to this every year, don't we? When it comes to the start of the season, where teams that maybe have not hit their stride offensively just yet, and we always say it: just wait until halfway through, wait until their respected game 4 or 5s. That's where you should start to see the team starting to click and starting to, especially the offense, is starting to move the ball, score points, and stuff like that. And it's like you said, it's easy going, not easy going up against your own team every week, but there's a familiarity, hard word for me, to going up against the same defense every week, knowing probably like half the guys that are on offense are probably in the same defensive group chat that know exactly what the way the plays are working out and stuff. So trying to come up against something different and trying to, make adjustments, and that is just something that's going to take, a couple of games.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the tape as well will be a big thing. I think you'd see guys who have played, one game and they've got tape on them. They might be easier to sort of practice. We might have seen a little bit in the Eagles Minotaurs game. The Eagles definitely seemed prepared for the Minotaurs early. Don't know, was that a fact that they got to look at the Minotaurs offense, whereas the Minotaurs had nothing on them and they're running a completely different system to the way they ran last year. So we saw the Eagles take an early lead there, and the Minotaurs would have had to adjust mid-game. So I think that's another factor as well for a lot of especially when you get to this point of the season where a team might not have played yet. Although I think we're the only team left without a game played. So
I made that mistake last week, thinking every team by this weekend would have played. I forgot about yourselves. That's just obviously the way that the schedule has worked. And you say that about the Eagles and the Minotaurs, which we'll get into. That also brings me back to even that Giants and Vipers game where the Giants didn't really have tape on what the Vipers were doing because of their changes in the off season as well, with head coach and new offensive schemes and stuff like that. So there is that, surprise element there that, teams that it's kind of, it's the unlucky part of the draw of playing, a Vipers first, or playing, like you said, an Eagles first, where you don't have this hype, and this element of surprise can catch you out. It did in the case of the Giants, and it almost did in the case of the Minotaurs.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge thing. It can be a massive benefit. There's also, as we said, the downsides of it not being as smooth, because it might be your first time in a competitive game running these schemes, which can definitely, like, especially when you've got a lot of rookies, like UL had, as we'll get on to later. You had a rookie QB in the first game of the season, so there is certainly pitfalls, but there is advantages as well at the same time for certain things.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of underperforming offenses, I see someone is already looking for their new job when they get sacked mid-season. Looking to bring back the Galway Warriors. Interesting call. We'll see. We'll get into, obviously, the Rhinos game against the Vipers later on in the show. But Alex, I guess we're going to have to get straight into the reviews from the game. Before we do, make sure, if you are following us there, or you're watching us on YouTube at the moment, send in a comment, hit the like button, subscribe while you're there as well if you haven't already. We'll get the interactions going tonight, and we'll have some good chats. Even though there's only two of us, we'll still feel like we're in a room full of people having chats for all this next hour or so. In the Premier Division,
we need all the commenters to make up for the lack of the Malloy mouth. We're missing both Malloys here. We've got no one to just sort of drone on at us, so we need their help.
Not saying I haven't enjoyed the piece that comes without Fionn, but you do need the chaos at times too. I will say that. But we'll go into the Premier Division games first. The Knights, Belfast Knights 11, the Cork Admirals 4. And they earned the title of today's show with the safety dance. Because they scored 2 safeties in the game to go 4-3 up at halftime. The Knights scored a field goal with Dottie McShane. And then in the fourth quarter, Zach McDowell threw to Dottie McShane for a touchdown to turn out to be the winning score. And then also the same combination was there for the 2-point conversion after the touchdown as well. All of their touchdowns this season, and I know they've only played 2 games, but has been Zach McDowell to Dottie McShane. 4 connections this year for that, which is pretty for standing in, for Zach having to stand in for Liam Moores, is a pretty good connection and chemistry to already have with a wide receiver. On the Admiral side of things, they're going to go back down to Cork, very disappointed, not being able to, move the ball on offense the way they did. I think it was early in the first quarter when I was looking back at some of the tape that they were actually pretty much on the 2-yard line of the Knights, and for what was a tipped pass turned into an interception, they could have scored themselves. So, again, you're coming up against a team that has played 1 game in the Knights against a team in the Admirals that are just starting out, including that long journey. And it's the Knights that squeeze through a win in the end.
Yeah, they actually only had 3 safeties. I don't know if you saw it. There was another drive where the Knights started on their own, within their own 5, and the running back got driven back into the end zone. But of course, forward progress meant he did just about survive there. I think the MVP of the game for Cork might have to be their punter. Every punt he was getting, right down there in the corners, coffin corner punts, and setting them up in positions to get those scores. But yeah, as you said, it's a couple of factors there. I think, in my opinion, actually looking back on the tape, I would say that Cork actually outplayed the Knights in the game. They just couldn't convert when it counted. And I also think their lack of a kicking game cost them as well. Surely that punter can kick field goals. He can kick it out of hand. Maybe
give it a shot. It was already going to be a low-scoring game. Just give it a shot.
Give it a drop goal or something. Like, I think they went for them 4th down, if memory serves. I think they went 3 times within field goal range. They went for them 4th down and didn't convert. And now some of those points did turn into safeties in the end. But like, if you think of it, like, that's those 9 points would have made up a deficit there. Could have certainly been closer. They were unlucky as well. Like in the last drive, they nearly got one cut loose and nearly got in for what would have been the game-winning touchdown. But it wasn't really until that early on they got it going, as you said, early in the first quarter they got it going. Just couldn't convert. Ended up getting the 2 safeties, then sort of struggled to move the ball for the mid portion of the game in the second and third quarters, and then in the fourth quarter when they were down that final drive, they were able to move the ball with some bit of productivity there through the air. But I think ultimately they'll definitely be ruined not having a kicker to make those kicks, and it does show that is important in the league. And I think Jake Kennedy probably had a day to forget, but again, it's the first game of the season. It's always tough at QB as well. You've got new receivers you're trying to forge that connection with. But it's as much as it was a sort of poor day on offense, both defenses played fantastically. That Knights defensive line was hounding Jake all day. He was scrambling left and right. And I think the disadvantage with having a QB who can scramble is they sometimes scramble a bit too much, and there was some sacks that were like 15-yard losses, and it becomes next to impossible to pick up a first when you've been sacked for 10, 15 yards. So that definitely sort of played a factor with that strong Knights D-line. They were able to really put Cork behind the sticks quite a few times. And then on the other side, Cork for defense played pretty well, coming with 3 points for the majority of the game. And then just at the end, as you said, Zach McDowell was able to link up with Dahi again. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why not go for the man who's caught all your touchdowns so far this season? And as we've said, he's in deputizing for Liam Moore. So I mean, it's great sign for them that they can keep going when they've lost their QB. And yeah, I think it's a really positive one for the Knights. I think Cork will be disappointed, but I think they have a lot of positives to take from it as well. Back down to Cork, it's not quite the trip back from Belfast that the Panthers had. Actually, no, the Panthers were at home, were they? Anyway,
yeah.
It's not the same like as getting beat by 40 points, getting beat by 7 points. It's different. It can be more sore in a way. Like you can feel worse because of it, because you were that close to clinching it. But at the same time, it does mean you've less road to go to match where they are at this point in the season. I think they've got a lot to build on in Cork. They seem pretty solid, and I don't think this means that they'll be slogging it out in the bottom half of the table. I think they'll still have their sights firmly set on playoffs, and I think it's an achievable goal for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the thing. We can't judge them on one game, and a game as crazy as this turned out to be. Not just for the low scoring, not just for the 2 safeties, but like you said, they seem to move the ball an awful lot better than the scoreline dictates. And the finishing and the scoring, that's gonna come in time. They have a week's break. They face the Trojans at home at NTU on the 5th of April, so they quickly get back into a chance. To get back into the win column against another team that will be fighting it out with them for one of those playoff spots for sure. Considering, I think at least obviously 3 of them is up for grabs. 3 playoff spots are up for grabs for sure this year, from the early stages. So there's plenty of time still for the Admirals. On the night side of things, it's great for them to get back into winning ways after their opening game defeat against UCD. Despite playing well at times against UCD, they probably would have said to you they played better against UCD than they did against the Admirals. But this is the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, where you win the games that you don't play well in, and they are the ones that are going to get you the playoffs. It's not the games you win that you should win. It's the games that you win that you probably would say that you should have lost. They're the ones that will get you to playoffs, and maybe who says, touch wood, fingers crossed, maybe Shamrock Bowl. For the Knights, they have a couple of weeks break. They are going to face the Vikings at home on the 13th of April. That's when their next game is. Before we move on, Alex, anything else to say about either side?
No, I think that as you said, that gap for the Knights, maybe that allows Liam to recover and get back under centre. And again, not that Zach's been doing anything wrong, but that could be a real boost for them, because Zach is also a weapon in the receiver room. So getting more weapons on there, maybe just that he doesn't get all the receptions. So he might be hoping that Zach stays in there, but. That'll be another interesting one, welcoming a Munster side up for the long trip. But we'll see when that one. Yeah, we'll see how that one goes when it comes down to it.
Yeah. Moving on to the other Premier Division game, the Craigavon Cowboys made their return to the Premier Division with a 10-0 victory over the UL Vikings. Mark McCauley with a field goal, and then QB for certainly the start of the season, Owen Hughes ran it in himself on 4th and 1 to secure the victory for the Cowboys in their home opener. For the Vikings, it's disappointing to go back to UL, not only with the elbow not being able to score. And Alex, from the tape that I've seen, I can't say I've seen all of it. I've seen good chunks of it, but at times struggling to run the ball, or to move the ball, I should say. Those pesky refs kept putting them behind the chains.
Yeah, look, that one, I thought it was two very different sides from the sides we would have seen last year. UL, I believe, were starting 11 rookies across their offense and defense, and the Cowboys were, of course, without QB 1, wide receiver 1, and running back 1 from last season. So the sort of lack of offensive output isn't massively surprising when you look at it like that. I think both defenses played very well on the day. They were both flying all over the place and making it in the running game. Neither team had a running game to speak of, bar Owen being able to scramble for some good yardage on a couple of times. The running game wasn't really there. UL also couldn't get the passing game running, so it meant it was very difficult for them when they went that 10 points down. It kind of felt like it was unassailable for them at that point. They were going to need to do something on defense or special teams, maybe to get in the end zone. But I think there's definitely some positives to take from both of them. I think they've got a game. Everyone's got a game. For UL, they've all got another game under their belt. It's a very young and experienced side. They'll have leaders in there who've been there for a long time, the likes of Will Campbell and Owen Fahey, who'll no doubt be sort of instilling it, like, look, this was a good performance by us. We've still got plenty of things to build on, plenty of things to work on. We know where we can be. A lot of execution issues for them, and a few silly penalties. But it was a pretty close game. Like, there was I always feel it's better to lose by a small amount. Feels like you're right there. This game will be played again. I believe they're playing each other again later on in the season. So I would expect UL to have learned a lot from a day like Sunday and to come back stronger. On the Cowboys side of things, they'll be happy enough. Pete Loughlin was there calling the plays on offense. Owen was sort of going over to him before each play, getting the call in, discussing the way they were going to do things. And they won't be happy with their offensive output based on where they were last year, but they're going to understand that with being down that many receivers and running backs. The running game was where I really noticed the struggle. They didn't get it moving at all. I think they had Joe Buchanan back from his ACL tear and caused him to miss all of last year. He was back there running the rock a bit and playing linebacker. but it wasn't quite working. That's where UL really stood up strong on the defensive side of things in the run game. They were able to get some passes away, not quite to the level that they had last year. No sort of Loughran sunshine connections showing on game one, but again, you need those sort of relationships to run. I know Owen played a couple of games of QB last year, but like relatively speaking, he's fairly inexperienced, and certainly at the SBC level, I don't think he's experienced at all. So they'll be happy to get out of there with the win. They know they have plenty to work on, and they've got a good coaching staff there, so they will work on everything that was done incorrectly and improve the bits that they can improve on and get to where they want to be, because they'll definitely want to be staying in the division, and they'll know that UL will have tape on them, and they'll be looking to counteract what UL can put forward when they do play each other on the return leg.
Yeah. Did Owen have his jersey fixed?
Yeah, all the jerseys were matching colours, and they had the names on the back there. So it might be the first Craigavon game I've ever been at where everyone's in the same colour jersey.
I still have sort of pictures in my mind of just that rip right along here, just along and you can just see the pads on his jersey, obviously from a different game during the season, which they didn't get fixed. Obviously, they have got fixed, so that's good. And you do make a great point there with, it's kind of a totally new Cowboys offense with Owen at QB, because you are taking Owen, first of all, out of his wide receiver spot, so there's a receiver gone. Sunshine is gone. He was there as well, wasn't he, as a receivers coach? But he wasn't playing. Peter, QB, not playing. Andy Herron, running back last year, not playing. That's a lot of points from last year, a lot of scores gone off the board, either completely not playing or having to move to another position. And I know Owen, popped up with the score himself and in the touchdown, but you wonder if what we're going to see next from the Cowboys in terms of, obviously, look, when you go up, you want to just make sure you consolidate, and this victory for sure is huge when it comes to safety this year. For them, the fact that they have the head-to-head over the Vikings at the moment, they have pretty much, because they play, like you mentioned, they play each other, they pretty much have a 10-0 lead now going into the next game as well, which is going to be huge. And for two teams that like you mentioned, that struggle to move the ball, and if they do continue that for the rest of the year, that 10-0 is going to be absolutely massive.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I think even the score they did get, Craigavon, was a bit of a strange one. They were going for it on 4th and 1 in UL's half, and it was a QB designed run to just punch it up the middle, get that to 1-2 yards that you need, and just whatever way it happened, whatever way the Vikings fit the run, there was a massive hole. Owen followed behind and ran the 30 yards into the end zone. Dragged like two lads with them, to be fair to him as well. They were hanging on to him as he crossed the plane. So it was a bit of a freak score as well. But so it's not something that they can be like, oh yeah, so this worked perfectly, let's run this again next game. They've got stuff to work on offense for sure. But so guys like Pete Loughran there, who's been there and seen it all before, I expect him to make the necessary tweaks and sort of coach Owen to be in at the point where he's able to go in there and execute the offenses as they want him to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and both teams now don't have that much of a break to work on any offensive issues, because they actually both play again this weekend. The Vikings will welcome the Panthers to UL on Saturday, and the Cowboys will face the Trojans on Sunday. We'll talk a little more about those fixtures as we get to the preview side. But let's move on to Division 1.
Just to give a final point on that, I was just going to say, as the TPO there ref in the game, I want to thank both sides. So both fairly respectful of the refereeing crew. We had some questions on some calls, as teams always do. one of the Cowboys coaches, Manny Bell, came up to us at halftime to sort of ask for an explanation on one of the calls. I gave him the explanation from my point of view, and he said, no problem. Like, the way he explained it seems fair enough. I'll take that back to our side. And I do appreciate that. And I just like to say, like, to all of the teams for the season, like, TPOs are out there doing their best. And that's the way we would like to be treated. That we're doing our best. We might not get every call right. We certainly won't get every call right. There's no ref in the league that will be getting every call right. So as long as we're all performing as TPOs to the best of our abilities, I think we are due a certain level of respect as well from both sets of players and coaching staff. I certainly received that. That was the reception I got on Sunday. Very appreciative of that from both sides, and I'd definitely like to see that continue to all TPOs crews as well. Not saying I get special treatment because I have a show, but I'd certainly like ourselves to be respectful of TPO crews and everyone else in the league.
They will absolutely put you on blast. If you didn't,
100%. I'm getting skewered in the group chats.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I'm getting nice. Maybe I'm getting niceties to the face because they're like, oh, he'll call us out of the show.
Yeah. This one was a fumble recovered by UL on the sideline called caught and then a dead ball because the defender was out of bounds.
Yes, so there was a pass out left. This was in the second half to Neil Maxwell of the Cowboys. He caught it. I don't actually think it was a forced fumble. I think just within the gathering motion, then starting to run, he dropped it forward. UL guy slid in and he recovered the ball. The ball was in bounds when he recovered it, but 75% of the UL player was over the sideline. So he was out of bounds when he recovered it. Therefore, the ball is considered out of bounds at that point, and it's a dead ball. So same as a fumble, just bouncing out of bounds, it stays with Craig Avon.
Very good. Okay, let's move on to Division 1 then. We'll start with the game on Saturday. That was the Kildare Crusaders against the Causeway Giants. Crusaders win by 23 points to 14. They go 2-0 to start the year. Rushing touchdown by Jordan Farrell. 2 passing touchdowns as well by Jordan. 1 to Nathan Purcell, 1 to James Ahern. TJ Culper Dwayne and Jordan Farrell each got a 2-point conversion, as well as Sam Krebs with an extra point. So the Crusaders are 2-0 after 2 victories, like I mentioned. First against the Stags, now against the Giants. They avenge. I don't know if they would consider avenging their plate loss from last July. On the Giants side of things, first of all, hampered with the fact that they were missing their head coach, Conan Jal, who unfortunately was stuck with all that shite going on in Heathrow at the weekend. On the scoring side, Nathan Chapman filled in the quarterback again with 2 passing touchdowns, 1 to Tony McCluskey and 1 to Ben Smith. And Tony himself caught a 2-point conversion as well. A depleted side, we heard 2 with a lot of guys playing Ironman, which if you play ball, you know how much fun it is playing Ironman, especially if you are like me of the wider frame and not high on the cardio stats. It's not great at all. But the Crusaders, we'll start with first, Alex. Still a little bit of an enigma to me. 2-0, which is great, and they're going to be absolutely delighted with it, and rightly so. Scoring points, and obviously not as much as game 1, but still scoring over 20 points, good. But still being kept close by other teams that maybe you wouldn't think that they should be. Like the Stags, you at one point were winning that game. The Giants, I'm not putting the Giants down in any way, but they would say themselves with their numbers and stuff, maybe the game shouldn't have been as close as it should have been if the Crusaders were on form. I don't know. Am I reading too much into this, Alex? Tell me if should I be going back to our previous conversation about offenses and teams maybe not hitting stride because it's still early in the season?
Yeah, look, I think you can only play the teams that put in front of you, and a win is a win. Like that's the main thing. I would say that a potential reason for the Crusaders playing close games is their aggression in play calling. I think I when I was watching the tape on this earlier, I think I counted they went for it on fourth down maybe like 5 or 6 times. Um, and I think they got it like 3 or 4 times. They were on the plus side of converting those, which some of them ended in scores, was great. But then that does kind of put you in bad field position sometimes. Like they were going for it on fourth down in their own half in some points, and I think a lot of play callers in this league would shudder at doing that. Especially when games in Division 1 tend to be quite tight and low scoring. You'd shudder at the fact of giving your opponent the ball in your own half. So I think that aggression definitely leads to them playing closer games. And Jordan as well is an aggressive passer. He will force the ball down the field. I think he threw 2 picks in the game.
Yeah.
Two or three definitely. So I think his sort of desire to push the ball down the field and their aggression on the play calling on fourth downs, I think they're two things that sort of you live by the sword, you die by the sword. As long as they can keep putting up the scores on offense, I don't think they mind as much conceding at the other end because they know that's sort of just the nature of the beast, the nature of the way they play. So I don't think they'll be, I mean, they're 2-0. I don't think anyone's going to be crying into their pints down in Kildare. I think everyone's going to be happy enough with how the season started. There's certainly things they can work on both sides of the ball. But, as we've said, offenses are typically slower to start at the season. And this Crusaders team has scored 60 odd points, 65 odd points or so. So
64, yeah.
64. So like from 2 games, they're, I think they're probably not quite where they want to be, but they're on the path to where they see this season going, and I don't think they'll be too unhappy down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's it. You make a great point, and I guess if it is the mindset of you score 4, we'll score 5, that's fine. And look, it makes things exciting anyway. But the thing I worry about is what happens when they come up against teams that can stop them and can stop Jordan pushing the ball down the field or Weller running the ball. Can the defense step in and win them a game or two? Because they're going to have to at this season, because statistically, and how the league has been, the defense has to win you the odd game here and there. Yourself, Alex, playing on defense, where you've had to sort of carry the burden for the team for on certain days where the offense isn't performing. So I think that's where my concern comes from.
Yeah. To be fair to the Crusaders as well, they did kneel the ball out on the Giants' 5-yard line, so that scoreline could have been slightly more. On the Giants side, I'm sure they'll feel that they let some opportunities go as well. The scoreline could have been closer, but that's the sort of way things go. But looking at it from a Giants perspective, yeah, they've got 2 touchdowns, a better output than their visit or their hosting of the Vipers a few weeks ago. They're going to be really disappointed to start season 0-2. I think, given where they sort of were from last year, they were probably hoping to build on that and get into the playoffs this year. An 0-2 start, having played 2 non-playoff teams from last year, will be really disappointing, I think, for them. I think they'll definitely be ruined some execution issues and just many different things from their 2 games. But they'll just have to buckle down. It's difficult to make the playoffs from 0-2. It's not impossible, I think that's what they'll be preaching in the locker rooms there, or the porta cabins up in Armoy. So yeah, I mean, and again, they've got a good coaching staff around them there, so I think they'll keep everyone's head focused, and they won't be giving up at this point. But they do have an uphill battle now at this stage.
Yeah, I think the room for error with the team is getting smaller and smaller here. And it's a crucial game now that they're going to have in a couple of weeks on the 13th of April in Mullingar against the Minotaurs. They're going to have to, by that stage, the Minotaurs could be 3-0 because they will play the week before against the Crusaders away in Newbridge. So that's going to be an interesting run there, an interesting 2 weeks for the Minotaurs and for the Crusaders and Giants too, because a huge chance for the Crusaders to go 3-0. The Minotaurs could go 3-0, and then the Minotaurs go to the Giants, where the Giants need to get back on track, and the Minotaurs could have a chance to either go 4-0 or get back to sort of 3-1 towards the top of the table. So fascinating fixtures coming up for both teams in the next couple of weeks. We are way behind time, so we'll try and get through these as quickly as we can. We still have one more game. The Westmeath Minotaurs that we just discussed are 2-0. They win against the Wexford Eagles by 28 points to 20. On the Minotaurs side, they threw 5 passing touchdowns from their quarterback, Sean McCormick, in week 1. This week it was all done through on the ground. 2 rushing touchdowns by Sean McCormick, another one by Chris Gilbert, and Niall Corcoran as well wraps up the scoring. Jay Bruton had 4 extra points too. On the Eagles side of things, they went up 6-0 and then 14-0, or was it 14-7 at one stage? 14-0. It was 14-0. Like we discussed earlier on the show, sort of blitzing the Minnows and shocking them with their sort of new offense. Rushing touchdowns by quarterback Doran Taylor and Terry Kerry. Then a passing touchdown later on in the game from Doran to Luke Fitzpatrick. At the end of the game, the Eagles did have a chance to try and even it up. But linebacker Mark Hughes made the game-sealing interception for the Minotaurs. And I mentioned Mark because that has to give some North Dublin Pirate love to Mark, obviously a former tight end with the Pirates, who's now playing linebacker with the Minotaurs. So well done to him and the Minotaurs going 2-0. The Eagles start their season 0-1. Despite only showing up with around, I think, 20 in kit on the day, they still put it up to the Minotaurs and, had a chance, like I said, at the end of the game to win that game for sure. So definitely a lot of positives to take for the Wexford side and for new head coach Ross McCooey. Alex, I think, I don't know, obviously you were on ref duty at the time, so you were kind of half maybe paying attention to the score, but seeing the Eagles go 14-0 up early on definitely was a bit of a shock, and sort of wondering what sort of Minotaurs team showed up on the day.
Yeah, it was 14-7 by the time the UL Craigavon game kicked off. So when I got, at halftime, I sort of rushed to the phone. It was the first thing I checked how that game ended up. I was suitably impressed by the Eagles as well. I think they sort of, as we talked about at the start of the show, they got that element of surprise probably. They came out and blitzed the Minotaurs quickly. The Minotaurs were driving to answer the Eagles' opening touchdown, and I believe they threw a pick in around the end zone, and then the Eagles drove the length of the field to go up that 14-0 early on. So that's impressive. As we said, with a lower squad number, it is hard to sort of keep the energy. And I think that's where we sort of see them fade, and they sort of battered them on the ground, the Minotaurs. Like, they had a really strong running game. The Eagles were defending it fairly stoutly and fairly robustly early on. But I think that really takes a toll on your linebackers and your defensive line making those tackles. And eventually, by the second half, the Minotaurs were ripping off, like 10, 12 yards per run in some stretches. So I think that just again also shows the Minotaur sort of experience and the sort of leaders that they have in their team there that have that SBC experience, that sort of focus of we're down 14-0, let's not panic, let's keep the heads and keep playing our game, and eventually, we believe will come good. So I think that's probably exactly what they were preaching on the sidelines, and that's exactly how it showed out. They'll be, pretty pleased by their ability to overcome that sort of early deficit. It's a great experience point for any rookies who are in there that can show you that just because you go down early or you take a 2-score deficit, you can still come back. You still got to keep fighting. And yeah, it's a really, really good positive result for the Minotaurs. And the Eagles won't be too disheartened either. Obviously, again, a loss is always stings a little bit, but they were suitably impressive. And I think they've got a lot to build on there. They have a new QB as well, different QB from last year. So I'm not sure if he's ever QB before, whether it be in flag or contact, but
I think if I'm correct, he was their safety DB anyway, for sure, for them last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, he was out there making some passes and getting some completion. So threw a touchdown at the end. So it was a good day. It was work for him and any other rookies that were in the Eagles side. So they'll just look to build on it. They've had, I think, a bit of a tough break on the schedule, having to play the Minotaurs, who were relegated in their first game of the season, and then playing a playoff team from last year in us, and also hosting the Philadelphia Blue Flame 2 weeks ago as well. So it's sort of 3 tough games in a row, you'd think. But they're well built for the Wexford. They're all tough, sturdy men. I've always sort of said men, sort of raised on spuds and roast dinners. A lot of them, they're all sort of generally the back in the day, they're certainly all built like linemen. They've definitely got some more skinny guys there in recent years, such as Luke Fitzpatrick, who got that touchdown at the end. So yeah, I think they'll be well fit for it. In the low numbers, though, is a bit of a concern when you've got those sort of back-to-back games. If they have any sort of niggles or injuries, it's hard to get going again on Sunday. I have no doubt that they'll, come prepared to face us, and they'll absolutely be giving us a game. So, yeah, just a lot to build on their side of things. And the Minotaurs go 2-0. A great start for them.
Yeah. We just hope that's some sort of maybe scheduling issue for a few of the lads that they couldn't make the game, and they'll be back this week. Before we get on to the rest of it, there is a bit of breaking news I see in the chat. Alex has obviously been talking to his teammates and has let the word out that, yes, you are right, Aaron. Darragh Lyons has moved to the Mavericks. He is there now. So it's absolute. You are correct in that. The news can come out at this stage. He has moved from the Panthers to the Mavericks. I'm sure planning to make his debut this coming weekend as well.
Absolutely true. That second hour will always get you. Rumor has it you lost that first. You lost one of those hours when the Pirates went 0-8, as is tradition of the Pirates.
This is league tradition, yeah. That's why Chris used to have Chris McGee used to have 2 R's in his name as well. Yeah. Right, let's then. I should mention as well. Sorry, the next games for both teams. We mentioned the Minotaurs there at the Crusaders on the 5th of April, and Alex, you alluded to it there. The Eagles' next game is up in Louth against your Louth Mavericks this coming Sunday. So let's move into our preview for these weekend games. But before we do, we should mention that this show and every show this season is proudly brought to you by Rain Rocks Web Design. They are the people behind the new UCP.ie, and I must say, if you haven't been on the site already, head on to it. They did an absolutely fantastic job putting everything together. We're able to get updated league tables for you. We're able to get fixtures there for you. We're able to get results there for you, including as well the latest podcast from ourselves too, if you want to catch them there. So really, really thankful to the crew at Rain Rocks Web Design for what they've done this season for us. We really, really appreciate all the hard work that they've done. And just to make sure that we can give you the best possible service and the best possible AFI we can this year, and hopefully for many years to come.
Yeah, it is
so
class. It is class. I use it
Yeah.
for my prep on the show, looking at scores for weeks and stuff. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. There you go. And I didn't even have to pay Alex to say that. So he absolutely means it. Let's head over then to this week's games. We'll start with the Premier Division. And on Saturday, the UL Vikings are hoping to turn things around very quickly, welcoming the South Dublin Panthers to Maguire's Field in UL. Both teams, like I said, coming off defeats. The Panthers are still probably trying to figure out what to do when it comes to head coaching and stuff. We still haven't heard anything. What's happening there? They had that disappointing defeat against the Trojans in week 2. Yeah, week 2, I'm going to say. Alex, it's tough with these two sides because, they both struggled offensively in their first game. The Panthers were able to put some drives together in the second half against the Trojans. I'm not sure if that's something clicking or if that's, maybe the Trojans going on prevent defense rather than, forward stepping, I should say, or, I'm not making sense, but you know what I mean. With their defense. So it's an interesting one. They're, the big threat for the Panthers, and it's kind of goes without saying, is Connor Hoskins. But, he was used a lot in game 1, and you could see the toll it was taking on him. The plan, I would assume, if he's there, if he's not, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I assume he is. That give him the ball, let him run. They have some big guys on the line that hopefully can move the Vikings to get them the yards. But, what is your thoughts ahead of this game?
Yeah, I mean, the run defense for UL was probably the biggest positive to come out of Sunday's game. They stopped the run very effectively against Craigavon. Now, it is a different test against the Panthers, as you say, with Connor Hoskins running the rock there. As well, I don't know if Luke Carey is back yet or if he's still out as sort of their second running back there. They've got...
He was there week 1.
Oh, was he there? I thought he was there.
Yeah, he was there week 1. Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, well, I got bad information from Fionn then, but that's not a surprise. So yeah, look,
Fionn's not even there. How is he meant to know?
Yeah, they've got a dynamic 1-2 punch there in the backfield, so that is going to be a stiffer test for UL. But given that was their sort of one, the one shining light coming out of Sunday, I think that's probably going to be a real focus for them. Sell out to kind of stop the run and force them to pass, maybe with the less experienced quarterback in there and receivers. So I think it'll be make for a really interesting matchup, and it's going to be a really important one, I think, for this season, and it's probably going to determine where these sort of teams are looking at. Are they looking at outside shot of playoffs or the making the Shield, or are they going to be trying to avoid relegation for the whole season? Is that what their season's going to sort of be based on? So I think it's a massive game, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't think it's going to be particularly high scoring, but yeah, should make for interesting viewing.
Mm-hmm. Are we putting the stamp on whichever team loses this as, the favorites to possibly go down? Is it too early to say?
It probably is too early to say. As I said, it's difficult to make, to make playoffs from 1-2. It's certainly not impossible, and it's definitely not impossible to survive after just losing your first 2 games. There's a lot of football still to be played. But I would think that the team that ends up 0-2 on Sunday, especially if it's the Panthers, given they've already lost by like 40 points to the Trojans. I know UL will have to play the Trojans. Craig Gavin will be playing this week, but it's going to be a difficult viewing on the league table for whoever loses that game on Sunday. So yeah, you're probably going to be putting the loser in as the favourites, the bookies' favourites. But I certainly wouldn't be making any grand statements at this point.
Well, make one grand statement for me. Who's winning this game?
I think the Panthers win in a low scoring game. I have it being 14-8. It's the Panthers.
14-8. Okay. I tend to agree with you. I think that the Panthers, despite losing so much talent, they still have some good talent there on that team. I think that providing Luke and Connor, and I should mention as well that we wrongly said that Luke Carey was Niall Carey last week, which is not true. Obviously, Niall Carey with the Vikings is not the running back of the Panthers. So sorry about that, Luke. But yeah, I think, like you said, with that 1-2 punch, Connor Murphy, the quarterback, can use his legs too. So he is another threat there that they're going to have to account for. Yeah, there's just, like you said, there's a lot of rookies on that Vikings team. And I don't know if it's experience against rookies in this one. I'm going to have to lean towards experience, and I think that'll be enough. Like that, I don't know if it'll be the highest scoring game in the world, but I think the Panthers do enough to win that game.
I think the real danger for the Panthers there is if they go down early, like say it's an opening kick returned by UL or something, or a pick early on, how do they react to that? They don't have a recognized head coach. They seem to be sort of running things themselves. I believe you were there a few weeks ago and you said the sideline was particularly quiet. If they go down, or if it's still 0-0 going into the fourth quarter, where is the sort of leadership going, the direction going to push them forward and sort of really get them to where they where they can win the game? That would be my one concern on the Panthers side of things.
No, I agree with that. I think that, and I think it's going to be the same on both sides. Actually, when you mentioned that, I think morale can be fragile. And I think that if either team goes down early, I wonder if a few heads do start to drop. I would back the Vikings to come back from behind, though, before I would the Panthers. I agree with you in that sense. I don't know if the Panthers would be able to. But look, we'll see. We will see. That game, of course, I said is on Saturday. That's a 1:00 kickoff. I should mention as well, if you're planning on going to any games this week, just as a heads up, Saturday games, 1 p.m. kickoff, Sunday games, 2 p.m. kickoff, because the clocks are changing and that's the way it works. I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you them. So Sunday games, 2 p.m. kickoff, Saturday games, 1 p.m. kickoff, which I'm obviously not too thrilled about because we play on Saturday and we have to kick off at 1:00 and go all the way up to Derry, which is class, obviously. Having to get up an hour earlier than we would have liked. But look, has to be done. This is why we play. The other game in the Premier Division features 2 1-0 sides. It's the Craigavon Cowboys, fresh off that victory against the Vikings, going up against the Belfast Trojans, fresh off their victory against the Panthers a few weeks ago. We reached out to Cowboys head coach Greg Loughran, and he said he's delighted to start a return to SPC football with a win, but we know that there is a tough season ahead. However, it's one game at a time, and we are looking for the win this Sunday. A tough game is in store for sure against a Belfast Trojans team that, their defense is an awful lot better than the Vikings, and we mentioned about the offensive weapons missing for the Cowboys. it's a tall task, I think, at this early stage to to be such a well-established Premier Division side. Would you think?
Yeah, it's a big test. It's a massive step up. The Trojans sort of put the Panthers to the sword, particularly in the running game, where they get 4 rushing touchdowns against the Panthers. I think that's going to rushing is going to feature heavily again. The likes of Jason Duddy and Paddy Summers they're going to be busy trying to keep the edge contained. It's a really difficult task with the talent they have in that backfield up in Belfast. So but their defense was good against UL. There's no question their defense played well. The likes of Jason and Paddy that I mentioned both played particularly well on a team that did favour the outside run in UL. So they've certainly got experience defending it, but you're going against faster, more experienced guys. It's tough. So I think it's probably going to come down to, can the Cowboys pick up their offense? We know that on the ground they didn't get a whole lot going. They need to figure that out. Was it blocking? Was it, what was it exactly that was leading it to not be as productive as they would have liked? And in the passing game, they're going to have to get that on point, because there were a couple of dropped picks by UL on Sunday just gone. Don't think the Trojans are going to drop those picks. We've already seen Max Dimitrov, what he can do if he gets the ball in his hands. He returned it for a pick 6 against the Panthers. That is a defense that is ready to capitalize on mistakes and turn them into points. So they've really got to sharpen up. They've not got a whole lot of turnaround time to do it. It's always tough playing those back-to-backs that open the season, especially when you go against maybe a perceived easier matchup into a harder one. That step up can be massive, and we know it's still a side working out the kinks in Craigavon, with the changes that we've already spoken about. So it's going to be a huge step up. Pressure's going to be on, but sure, look, it's why we play the game, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Beat the best, you got to beat the best.
Pick a winner for me, Alex.
I'm going to say it's green triumphant over orange in the north this weekend.
Like the true Republican you are, sir. I'm going to agree with you. I think, especially with their new running attack featuring Rayshon Boswell, I think the Trojans are just going to have a little too much for the Cowboys at this stage of the season. Maybe if it was at a different stage, we could talk about maybe possibly a closer game. But I think the Trojans know they have a chance this year, and they know that they have to make this year count with the amount of changes at the top of the table, especially under UCD, that they have a chance to cement second spot to get themselves to a first of all, to miss UCD in the playoffs, and then possibly face them in a Shamrock Bowl. And, when it comes to finals, anything can happen. Give themselves a chance. So, yeah, I'm going to go for a Trojans win on this one, for sure. On to Division 1. We'll start with the game on Saturday. Like I mentioned, the Northwest Vipers, who are 1-0, are welcoming the 0-1 West Dublin Rhinos to the Vale Centre up in Derry. And Mark, thank you very much that you're going to have the coffee ready for me. I'm really looking forward to it. A bit of milk and 2 sugars as well, just to make sure if it's nice and steaming by the time I get there on Saturday. But really appreciate it. Tough opening weekend loss for ourselves in Westmeath. Kind of, it's 2 games now in a row, if you count the Harp Bowl, where the offense have failed to score. The defense has been on the field for too long. We definitely hold our hands up and say that we didn't put them in good positions week 1 against the Minotaurs, and we gave the Minotaurs too many short fields to score. which they took advantage of, and which good teams do. You know, the Vipers are rightly going to think that they should be considered favourites for this game. They won week 1. They have seemed to have recruited very, very, very well. They seem to have a new bounce on offense, and you know it's going to be a tough one for ourselves, because we're going to have to prove, not to anyone else, but to prove to ourselves that, you know, last year wasn't, you know, a surprise. Last year wasn't a blip by getting to the Harpo. We have to prove that we are good enough to do that again, and that has to start by beating the Vipers on Saturday. Jesus, Alex, you got away with this for so long. It's this season. It's so hard to talk about your old team and not give away stuff. It's so tough. See, if we had an unbiased one of like Rian here tonight, it'd be an awful lot easier. But look, listen, Alex, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so I think that the Vipers, like, they have an opportunity to catch a wounded Rhinos team and really sink their fangs in and potentially poison a playoff run for the Rhinos. But Rhinos are notoriously tough-skinned. So, you know, does that neutralize that sort of potent Viper bite? And can they steady the ship and get back on the road to playoffs? I think that's what it comes down to. That's my money earned for the show there. Just putting together a little animal analogy in my preparation. So I have no opinion on that game other than the animal-based encounter between a rhino and a viper. No, I look, the run game, I think for you guys, that has to be your focus. I suppose it's forget everything Sean has taught you. Just forget it all and just go back to, oh, here he comes now. So yeah, you know, just get that running game sorted out, and to be seriously, get the running game, because the Vipers are a hard-nosed defense with a really strong front 8 possibly, and I think that their game plan will be to sell out on the run, stop the run, and force your rookie QB to pass the ball again. That's going to be their aim, I think, based on, well, this is, you know, how I played if I was coming up against she, but that's not for another few weeks, Dara. So I think that's what their game plan has got to be. Your defense in the Rhinos is good, so and it'll be a bigger test for the Vipers than the Giants. So be interesting to see how they plan against that. They used a lot of sort of sweeps and everything quite effectively against the Giants. And it was definitely a different Vipers team to the one we've seen in previous years, where it was a lot of run it up the gut and then throw it on 3rd and long. They've definitely developed that offense more. So I think it's going to be a good one. I think it'll be a close game. I expect this one to potentially be another low-scoring affair. The Vipers just generally tend to be involved in low-scoring games. But I think ultimately you have the firepower to improve. It just depends, like, how much Sean is allowed to talk on the bus on the way up. That could depend. Like, that could ultimately determine your fate on Saturday.
I'm making sure the headphones are charged. Don't worry. I'm making sure they're charged. Yeah, look, yeah, it's kind of, like I said, it's hard to talk about your own team and make sure you don't say the wrong thing, and, you know, don't want to disrespect opponents. And look, I'd never disrespect any opponents that I face. Maybe just Alex. That's the only one I would. But which is only fair. The fecker made me wear a 49ers jersey last year. But I do the bet again with you this year, but I don't know when I'd see you again to get it back. But yes, fine. The headphones are charged for about 8 hours, so don't worry. I'll make sure I'll record, you know. Right. obviously, I'm abstaining. I'm not going to give a prediction. So, Alex, who's winning this game on Saturday?
I'm going to say Rhinos win this, and it's going to be 13-6.
Okay. Right, moving on then to the other game in Division 1, and the Mavericks and a certain Mr. Alex Sims joined the chat finally for the 2025 AFI season. They welcome.
There's a few days before Sunday, Dara. That's just bless ourselves.
No, God. They welcome the Wexford Eagles, like who we mentioned earlier on, who has to bounce back after a defeat last weekend to the Minotaurs. Interesting reunions in this game as well. Obviously, your new head coach / quarterback / linebacker. Is he playing? Is he taking your spot at linebacker this year now as well?
No.
You won't let him. You won't let him.
I said, move aside, old man.
Ty is obviously coming up against his former head coach in Ross McCooey, also former teammate in Steve Walsh as well. I don't know if there's any other Rebels on the team. I don't think so.
Don't think so.
No, don't think so. So that's going to be an interesting reunion. Be fun for all about 5 minutes before the game. Before obviously you all get your game faces on, for this game. But Alex, talk to me. How excited are you to finally start the season?
Very excited.
How hard has it been seeing every other team play, and some teams even play 2 games before you've had the chance to play?
It's been a long off season, especially like our most recent competitive football game was losing to you in the semi-final of the playoffs last year. So like, it's still itching to sort of get out there and get that winning feeling again. So to speak, it's been a lot of prep. There's been a lot of thud football in practice, and like, it's great. Nobody likes to injure their own teammates, but fuck me, do I miss hitting people hard and making them feel it. So I'm really looking forward to getting back out there. The most important thing to note, I suppose, for this weekend is, it's the end of March. It's the end of the financial year in Ireland. So we're rebranding actually as the South Armagh Mavericks for tax purposes. And this game's not actually being played in Dundalk Rugby Club. Yep. This is genuine. We're playing the game in Newtown Hamilton in South Armagh. So if anyone is looking to go to the game, I believe the Eagles and the refs have already been informed, but the game is going to be played at St. Michael's GA Club up in Newtown Hamilton. It doesn't exist on Google Maps, so just search for St. Michael's Primary School, Newtown Hamilton. It's behind there. You'll find it, hopefully. We don't even know if we'll find it, but I believe we'll be marking it on the Saturday, so we've got a bit more time.
If I see one message in that group chat on Sunday saying someone has gone to Dundalk Rugby Club, I swear to God.
No.
The ambulance is at Dundalk Rugby Club or something like that.
Yeah. Please God, I just don't even jinx it, Dara, because if the game doesn't happen for some sort of logistical reason, I will lose my mind, and it will have been a complete waste. Well, not a complete waste, obviously. Of course, I'm doing a bit of side, smuggling a bit of diesel on the side, so it won't be an entirely wasted weekend if there's no game.
Of course, no. You gotta make sure you got yourself looked after there. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you see how this is a great deflection tactic for not actually having to talk about the game or any sort of intricacies of how we intend to approach it.
Alex, tell me exactly your first 10 plays on offense now when you start this year. Are you going trips right or trips left?
The beauty of not being on offense anymore. For now.
But no, look, listen, this is good situation. I'm not going to say that, but you're not in the position that Westmeath were, that you have tape on Wexford now. Okay, albeit it's only one game.
And it's also, was filmed using Soviet era surveillance equipment and also filmed somehow during like a magnitude 7 earthquake. But aside from that, we do technically have tape on them. I can't discern anything that happens on the field, but we do have tape.
Look, you're going to have to concentrate harder watching that tape than you would actually making sure you know your own playbook. Yeah, I know. I've watched some of it. It's tough, but there is still some tape. You know, there's an idea of what's coming your way this Sunday. Whereas on the other side of things, they don't have tape on you. They could try. Now, obviously, you know, the defense, you might have an idea of. There's not been a lot of change in the defense when it comes to coordinator schemes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But on offense, obviously, you have a whole new team with Ty, new quarterback, new playbook, you know, obviously new players. But, you know, I think I saw someone say, or was I talking to someone about it and saying, well, a way they can do it is just look at old Rebels tape. And you can, but I don't think that's going to be the exact right way to go about it, because I'm sure he's changed stuff, because he hasn't got the same personnel that he had in with the Rebels, so he's had to obviously adapt it some way or another. We did get a chance to reach out to Ty and ask for his thoughts ahead of the game. He says it's a fun opportunity to see who we are and what we can become. As always, focus more on the process than the results, especially this early in the season.
Some of the finest coach speak ever written and sent to a media outlet.
I know. We get complaints about that why aren't they saying anything else? So why would you expect anything else? We're a podcast asking coaches to let us know what they think about the game. You're going to get the same stuff all the time. Just accept it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
No. Look, he makes
Sorry,
that's what we want to. That's what Sunday is all about, getting out there and you know, playing the game, seeing how we line up, how our schemes are working on offense. They'll want to, you know, check how everyone's running. I'm sure, like, Ty is a difficult taskmaster. You know, he has those boys running, the fast boys, you know, the fast skinny boys on offense. They're out there an hour before any of the rest of us start training and running routes. So they better be down crisp, or he'll be ripping shreds out of them on the sidelines. Look, I think we've done about as much prep as you can do. We've prepped for every scenario.
You've had the most time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, to be fair, we've made use of it. But look, it's time for the rubber to meet the road and see how we get on against the Eagles. I think they're you know, a pretty solid unit, and they'll take some beating. But I'm looking forward to the test, and yeah, can't wait to welcome them up to our new home in South Armagh. Not our new home. We will be back in Dundalk.
Ty has changed everything. Jeez,
yeah.
You know, new jerseys on the way, new home field, new everything. When are you going to be rebranded as the Loud Rebels?
I'm not sure we can go and relocate and be called the South Armagh Rebels. There might be some sort of league motion against that. Not sure.
There may be one or two complaints.
Yeah, you did maybe. Allude to my roots earlier, but I can't go that far, you know. You don't.
Right. Well, I'm assuming, Alex, you're going to be like me and you're going to abstain from making a pick on this one.
No, we're going to win.
Okay. I love the confidence. You obviously don't believe in bad luck or bad juju or anything like that. So,
no, I think you've got to believe that you can win. If you go into a game thinking that you can't win, what's the point in playing it? No, I believe we'll win.
Okay, perfect. It's tough because we don't know, but we kind of do know. It's just that weird sort of area that we're in. Like, there is a lot of change, but we know what the change is, if you know what I mean, because we know who's coming in. We know the type of operator Ty is. We know the sort of, know some of the players that have come into an already good roster with the Mavericks. By the way, I don't like the fact that you aren't struggling to get 22 players on the field anymore. That's not the Maverick way. So
That's
I
true.
don't like that. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with a Mavericks win. Especially if the numbers are similar on the Eagles side that they were on Sunday, because you're asking them to play. Some guys play Ironman 2 weeks in a row. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be really tough on the legs, really tough on the bodies. So I'm going to go with a Mavericks win. I'm sure you're delighted to hear that. I'm sure the Eagles hate that, but hey, prove me wrong. That's all I'll just say.
Makes no difference who we think is going to win ultimately.
Yeah. Whether I'm right or wrong, I'm not keeping count anyway. I've stopped doing that because it's just too long of a process. So if I'm right next week, if I'm wrong next week, I won't remember. So it's fine. You're grand. Alex, that's where we're going to wrap up this edition of the show. I really appreciate you sticking it out with us for over an hour. And choose an hour 15 at this stage. Lots to talk about. We'll have lots more to talk about next week, including your first game, and we'll get the exclusive review of the game and how you thought it went. We'll obviously review my game as well, and also the two other games that are happening in the Premier Division, but they obviously don't mean anything in comparison to our games because we're not involved. Make sure before we go, make sure if you haven't already, like the video on YouTube. Please subscribe and maybe comment on who you think are going to win the 4 games this weekend. And we'd love to hear from you on that. Alternatively, go to our website, ucp.ie. It's there at the top of the screen, brought to you by Rain Rocks Web Design. They have, we have the latest tables, fixtures, results, everything you need there. All of our podcasts there too, and a link to our YouTube channel as well. Also our socials, including our Instagram at UnderCenterPod. That's where you're going to find all the latest up to date on our stories every Saturday and Sunday for the latest score updates as we get them. But that is where we're going to end this edition of the show. We'll be back again next week, maybe with a full crew, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. But until next time, stay safe. Always see you soon.
Peace.